It's going to be today's presentation. All right, Lucero, you have the floor.
Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Unseen Consequences of Gang Enhancements by Alex Diaz and Lucero Herrera. So a little bit about myself. I'm from the Self-Determination Advocate at the Young Women's Freedom Center. I work with young cis and young girls, trans young women and girls, trans young men and boys, and gender nonconforming folks. I meet young people where they are: juvenile hall, the adult jail, street, foster. I'm also working from a theory to provide support, to deepen our understanding of ourselves, to develop power and move beyond survival towards self-sufficiency. I'm someone who experienced long-term incarceration and also profile as a gang member. As a young mother, I believe that young women and girls need to lead the change, the narratives of our lives by telling our stories as cis and trans women and girls, trans young men and boys, and gender expansive people. I believe that young women should have the agency over their own lives. The self-determination coaches is to support them in defining what sufficiency means to them. I meet women where they are and work with them over time to deepen their understanding of ourselves and what justice looks like and means for them, their children, and their communities. I have been with the Young Women's Freedom Center since 2015.
So I guess a little bit more about myself. Like Lucero, I was also formerly incarcerated. My first time incarcerated, it was in 2013, and I was 13 years old. For me, I joined a program. In the bottom left, there's a picture of myself, the CEO and founder of an organization called Positive Communication Practices that teaches a manhood development, social emotional intelligence development, and also a behavior modification violence prevention program in the maximum security units here at Alameda County Juvenile Hall, but also in the Division of Juvenile Justice, otherwise known as previously known as Youth Authority. So right now, I'm a case manager in training. I'm helping them do some work with the youth. We're doing some violence prevention and behavior modification. On the right is another graduate of the program who was in there with me in 2013. So right now I'm the assisting executive director with him. We're building it up. It's something new. It's kind of taking off, and we're really just trying to create a new model for youth when they're coming home to have reentry services, but also have case management while they're in there now to be able to grow, expand, and also like have the ability to see that there's so much more to life and that they could have something here when they come home. So that's a little bit of the work that I do there. With LSPC, or Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, I'm also a policy analyst, so we're working on 3 bills, SB 731, and some other bills. But the main one I'm doing right now is trying to do expungement and record sealing. That's a big one for me. And then I also work with Courage doing policy analyst as well. One of the big bills is AB 333, known as a Step Forward Act that deals with gang enhancements, and it's just trying to offset some of those, I guess, the loose terms that are inside of the gang enhancement laws that allow so many people to be affected by it. And finally, I'm a UC Berkeley student studying business administration. There's a student organization called the Underground Scholars of formerly incarcerated and system impacted individuals, and we all work together to just try and change laws as students. So yeah, this is a little bit about me.
So today I'm going to be sharing my social biography, my life in the context of the world and the context as it is transformed by my life. I chose this quote because I'm working from a forum, Liberation Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire, Education as the Practice of Freedom. My journey into the US and the impacts of my migration in my life. I was born in El Salvador, where my mother fled her country due to the government political violence that turned into the Civil War. The Civil War built military gangs that trained children to use violence. My mother came to the United States to escape poverty and corruption, only to experience much of the same here. My family, like many others, have come to the United States because of the lack of resources and extortion. Still, instead of freedom from violence and gangs, we are criminalized because of the communities and families we come from. What is the education to prison pipeline? is a tool that profiles Black and brown kids, classifying Black and brown kids with behavioral problems and separating them from other kids, even being pulled out of class for not able to focus, for talking, exposure for misbehavior, and using this tool to refer to the police by their schools. This harsh tool only impacts minorities and students with disabilities and students of color. I was pulled out for being silly, sometimes for not letting my class focus, even for a small little piece of red in my backpack. Started with school in the 6th grade, being pulled out of class because my mom decided to brush my hair and put a red hair tie on me that day. How did the early unjust police treatment impact my life? I grew up in San Francisco Mission District, where many of my friends and family were profiled and labeled gang members. I was 17 years old when I was charged as an adult because of a gang enhancement. And on my 18th birthday, I was transferred to the adult jail with 12 felony counts, including terrorism, mayhem, and attempted murder. My brother was also profiled, targeted, and eventually deported, which led to his murder in El Salvador in 2019. Having been charged with a gang enhancement, I was forced to register as a gang member and carry a blue card that identified me as a gang member. Not only did it dehumanize me, it led me to being targeted by law enforcement. Wherever I went, it meant that friends and family often did not want to be around me. What does it mean to be registered as a gang member? On March 8, 2021, Proposition 21 gave a passage to courts to use this racist tool to dehumanize Black and brown people, a tool to mass incarceration, to register as a street gang member. This tool only brings shame in having to hide and be pushed out of our community. This tool destroys our freedom, a weak standard of proof to characterize gang enhancements. This tool is responsible for the hurt, the trauma, and many families' physical and financial pain and the abuse of rights taken. What are gang enhancements? According to the law, gang enhancement is a racist tool that gives people of color additional prison sentence, even for a small offense. Do you know how many people get charged with gang enhancements? And if anybody wants to share on the chat, you want to raise your hand to answer this question, you can. So do you know how many people get charged with gang enhancements? 11,484 inmates in the state's adult prison system. There are various versions of gang enhancements of both the state and the federal level in California. Almost 70% of the state's prison population in 2019 had at least one enhancement. 6% had a gang enhancement of August 2019. 10,535 are Black and brown people. The STEP Act, today's racist system. It was passed in 1988 to crack down on the perceived threat of street gangs. Time has shown that the policy has racist outcomes. Gang enhancements can be applied to crimes as minor as vandalism. If convicted, defendants serve time for underlying crime and gang enhancement. In times, the gang enhancement sentence is much longer than the underlying sentence. Enhancements can stretch from 1 year to a life sentence. Gang enhancement is the most blatantly racist law considering how it is applied during trial, criminalizing Black and brown culture and communities. 27.6% of all gang convictions amongst incarcerated people in California were targeted and residents of LA County as of 2020. What are components of gang injunctions that I saw growing up? The injunctions: labeling me of a certain area that my mom can only afford, a low income area. Racial profiling: I'm Latina and I was born in El Salvador. Even sometimes being profiled as called little lazy because of my brother. Even just walking down the street, getting out of school, I was profiled. Documented gang member. The court's ordered to register me as a gang member. In custody treatment. I was booked in my card as classified northerner. I was segregated in a high level. I was also overcharged, charged with assault and the gangs in juvenile hall. And then I was charged as an adult at 17. And on my 18th birthday, I was transferred to the adult jail. When I went inside the adult jail, they gave me 3 booking papers. And those booking papers read my charges of 3 counts of terrorism, 3 counts of mayhem, 3 counts of involved street gang, 3 counts of attempted murder, 3 counts of murder. My plea deal was deportation, which my mother had proof of my citizenship. My second plea deal, paper commitment, parole, and register as a gang member and get out of San Francisco. Deportation. Unlike my brother, it led to death in 2019. One system to another system, the immigration system, and then deportation to a country we were born but never grew up in. This just pushes us more into the system. Deportation also dehumanized families of minorities, ripping them from their rights, breaking and entry and using the tool to scare families and overpower, scaring them with deportation. They had used a search warrant to come inside my house and put my aunt in handcuffs. She's someone who was Latina, from El Salvador. She was scared of ICE. She was scared of deportation, and they ended up dropping her to the floor and putting handcuffs. What are gang injunctions? A gang injunction is obtained by the city attorney or district attorney who asks the judge to declare that a particular gang is a public nuisance and impose permanent restrictions on the targeted individual daily lives. Why this model does not work? These gang injunctions were created, in my view, as a tool for racial profiling. How do they work? The DA office or city attorney files a complaint against demographic of individuals in a certain neighborhood, which is said to be a hotbed of criminal activity. In an effort to reduce this, they impose restrictions that are constitutional violations, but are permissible if labeled public safety concerns threat. Some of these topics we will be addressing: profile restrictions, label targeted, following certain individuals in their daily lives, stopping and taking pictures of friends, loved ones, family, due to the partner or the family member having to register as a gang member. We'll be sure. Oh, it's okay, no worries. Gang injunctions, how they affect our life, our home, our community, and the involvement with the law. Gang injunctions, this tool is only used in a certain zone of low income families, black and brown and Latina communities, an area that we live in and that we can only afford. Gang enhancements are the drive to mass incarceration because they are easy for prosecutors to apply. We do not see gang injunctions in white neighborhoods targeting white gangs. Even the 3% of white gangs enhancement in California are primarily from Black and brown communities. Once again, gang enhancement have been a key driver of mass incarceration because they are far too easy to prosecutor to apply. The proof of racism and policing in the laws, policing. Lawmakers have increased the penalties. Gang enhancements can lead to life sentences. Enhancements can also apply to nonviolent people in the system. 68% are Latino, Latina, and Latinx, and 24% are Black. Black and brown communities are over-policed. It costs more to separate the gang allegations onto a separate trial. Bifurcation is the only way, the real way, for Black and brown people can get a fair trial without gang allegations that can only create unfair bias on the jury.
Okay, so I guess I'm going to be talking a little bit about myself now. So one of the quotes that I chose was, what you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. And I chose this quote because this is one of the questions that was always asked to me when I was in jail. I was going through some changes in my life where I was trying to, go to education, trying to stay out of jail and stuff. So for me, personally, being on this panel, speaking with all of you, telling you about my life, some of the things that have happened, and similar shared stories like between me and Lucero of things that have happened, and informing the community, and also trying to get the community involved in making some of these changes and efforts in these changes, is ways that I see, the change in my community, and how I could help my community. So with that being said, I'm a first generation Mexican American. My mother crossed the border, and my father did too when they were both 16 and 18. My mother comes from an indigenous town in Oaxaca. She's a part of the Zapotec tribe. So, they first landed in LA, and that LA was like the first time they had ever came to the US, but it was also the first time that they had ever seen ICE, immigration. And they also really got to experience what the US was like. They all came here for opportunities, just like Lucero's family did, trying to get away from certain things in their home, trying to support their families, trying to be supported. But what they didn't know is that, not having citizenship and not being able to speak English was going to play a massive, massive role in some of the things that we had to live through. Like they didn't have the ability to make enough money like they wanted, which meant that we had to live in extreme poverty. And that just led us to bad neighborhoods, or what people call the ghetto. And not having money really led us to having no after school programs, no resources. Sometimes we wouldn't have meals. And if we did, it would be only a cup of noodles or two a day. And it was a lot of stress during that time. They had to send my sister to Mexico because they couldn't afford to house all of us. It was four of us in total. So it was just a mix of no resources, no help, no support, of extreme poverty. And eventually alcohol and drug abuse from from family members just led them to go into street culture, to turn the wrong way and get lost. And part of that was being on the brink of homelessness, not knowing what to do, not knowing what was next. So just to share some facts with you, 1 in 10 Bay Area residents make too little to cover the cost of living, and then 62% make too much to qualify for food stamps. So it's like right in that sweet spot in the Bay Area where it's like you might not have enough for rent, but you have enough to pay for food, and other public assistance won't come in and help you. And being an illegal immigrant doesn't help you. So that's kind of like, the mixture of what was going on at that time. So, how did poverty and my family ties play into my role in my criminalization? So for me, my sibling closest in age is 4 years older than me, and that's my brother. So my brother was a documented gang member according to the Berkeley Police Department. That's where we're from. And he was put on a gang list. So typically what happens is when you put someone on a gang list, or you file court procedures against someone for criminal activity, what ends up happening is that the gang units, the task force, the police officers go to court, and they have documents and they have paperwork that say, hey, I'm an expert. I know what I'm saying, and this individual is involved with this gang. So then they'll say that he's affiliated with so-and-so who's documented, and it just creates a long, long list of individuals who are associates, affiliates, whatever you want to call it. And eventually it provides enough proof most of the time to say that they're gang members. So there are things like guilty by association and things like that come of it. So for me, since my family was really, really poor, I would have hand-me-downs. I would wear my brother's old clothes. I would wear his hoodies, and things like that. So the first time that I ever had a police interaction was in 6th grade. The police officers, the resource safety officer, whatever you want to call them, they came to our school and they wanted to do a presentation. And they were like, we want to talk about staying on the right path, doing good, going to high school, going to college, and not doing bad things and whatever. But halfway through the presentation, midway through a sentence, one of the police officers looks at me and they say, you're so-and-so's brother, huh? And, being 12, 13 at that time, I was like, oh yeah, my brother, like, yeah, how do you know him? Like, in my head, I was like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's my big brother. What I didn't know was that they looked at the clothes I had been wearing, which was his hand-me-downs, and they said, oh, okay, so you're following in his footsteps. You're trying to be like him. So you are a gang member because that's gang that clothes represents, having like red clothes on, having certain hats on and stuff that he used to wear. They're like, okay, so you're associating with a certain gang or a particular area from a particular area. So for me, that was the first time. I didn't know, but that was enough in their head to be like, we're going to single him out. We're going to target him. So some of the ways that happened was, I would get out of school in 6th grade. I would walk home and police officers would try to pull up next to me and be like, hey, where you going? What are you doing? Where's your brother? Who's he with? And they would basically try to interrogate me and try to get information out of me and push me to I guess, tell on my brother or whatever. And they would always try to say things like, if you don't tell us, you're contributing to criminal activity because you know that they're doing things they're not supposed to. What if he gets hurt? What if he hurts someone? So it was just this harassment. And eventually what ended up happening was that this hearing you're contributing to criminal activity, to their criminal activity over and over and over again, eventually just led me to being like having you know what, I might as well be, right? Because anytime I'm trying to do good, I'm told that I'm not doing good. I'm doing the exact opposite, right? So, me not telling me being like, you know what, my parents always told me to stay away from police, get away from me, automatically made me a target. So for me, it was like, you know what, I might as well just go into the lifestyle that they're saying that I'm already headed towards. And that had a lot to do with it, that being pulled out, singled out, suspended, and pushed. So that's kind of, how my family rolls and how the police interaction with safety officers on school really, really led to this, to me being like criminalized, and then eventually led me to doing things I shouldn't have been doing. So like Lucero, what are some of the components of gang enhancement and these racist laws that I saw growing up? Personally, injunctions was a big one. Once I went to jail for the first time, and it had nothing to do with the gang enhancement the first time, but since I was related to my brother and other people from that, they had built a record on me from it. So when I went to court, they told me, hey, you got into a fight, so-and-so wants to press charges against you. And since you're wearing certain colors, since you're hanging out in certain areas, and since you're related to certain people, we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna impose restrictions on your probation. And we're gonna go ahead and file these things. So that meant I couldn't be around other individuals who were gang related from a certain area. I couldn't even be within a radius of where I had been incarcerated or where I had been arrested and eventually led to my incarceration. And there was a bunch of other restrictions. And these stay away orders and all these other things basically created an injunction, an imaginary injunction where it's like, you can't be in this area. But, my city is such a small city that a 1 mile radius is more than half the city. So for me, it's like I have to take 2 or 3 buses to go to school, which means that now I'm getting home late. So when I go to court, my probation officer is telling me, you're late 3 times in a row. And the judge is like, we're going to give you a violation. We're going to move you from probation to ankle monitor. And then if you keep this up, we're eventually just going to throw you back in jail. So it made it really difficult, especially when the probation department was working with the police department, because now they have a list of people on probation and stuff. And they're like, okay, let's monitor and let's track all these individuals. And if any of them are working with one another, any of them are talking, moving, any of that, pretty much what ends up happening is they just start locking everybody up. So that's kind of how like some injunctions work. I know there's more specific, like Oakland, in certain areas like Fruitvale and the Diamond District, and then in other areas of it, in sections, you couldn't wear certain colors. You couldn't be around certain people. If you were a gang member or documented gang member and you were in any other areas, that was enough to go to jail. That was enough to pull you over, to stop your car, to search you, to question you. So that's how some of those gang injunctions work. And I only say that because I spent a lot of time in Oakland too, because I have family members over there. So it's just a really big tool for just stopping, criminalizing whole neighborhoods. And that led to racial profiling. Like I said, if you wore a certain color, if you looked a certain way, if you were in a certain area where they said you couldn't wear red, blue, black, whatever, and you did, that was enough to stop you and say, hey, you must be a part of this. And like Lucero touched on earlier, you don't see any of this in the suburbs, in the white neighborhoods, and stuff. So it's a big tool to criminalize whole neighborhoods. Then you go into the documented gang member status, right? Once you're that documented as an individual, there's nothing you can do. People automatically are like, you know what, you're documented. I don't want nothing to do with you. I don't want to be around you. I have friends who fell off, family members. But what makes it worse is that there's other individuals in my family, like my uncle and people who would come to our house and who were drug addicted and had nowhere else to go at times. But that meant that my mother had to be like, you know what, you got to go. Or you know what, you could only come at certain times. because that meant that if the police decided to raid my home, or if probation department decided to come and do a pop-up and a wellness check, and my uncle was there, that meant that me, my brother, my sister, my uncle, and anyone else in our household, my cousins who were there, who might have been there, would all end up going to jail, because we were all on probation at that time, where we had stay away orders from gang members or affiliates or associates or anybody that had any type of a criminal record, right? So basically, it just destroyed communities. It destroyed our family, our household. Part of the case management reentry services work that I do, we see a lot of this, and we see a lot of young people coming home and saying, I need a support network, and I need someone who's going to help me. And once you take away that family support network, people who are positive, and you're saying, hey, you can't be around so-and-so, it really just leads to like catastrophe. Recidivism rates shoot up, if they have nowhere to go, or if they can't be around people that they would label as like mentors, because of certain things. So this is just a big tool. And then we go into the in-custody treatment. So I say this to say that when I was incarcerated, there was a lot of individuals who would come in, but they would come into certain units. So if you're in a gang, you would be segregated into different units, or you would be segregated into different sections within the prison, because they didn't want you to hang around certain people. And this really happens in county jails, where they segregate you, juvenile hall, and stuff like that. And what ends up happening is they say, if you seem like you pertain, or you even look like you're from a certain area or anything, they're going to put you in a certain room with a certain amount of individuals. And there's things in there like mutual respect that go on. So if you seem like you have a mutual respectful relationship with anybody else, and another gang member sees it from another area, another facility, or anything, or another housing unit, they're going to say, hey, you're programming with them, you're working with them, so you must be a part of them. So really all it does is it just keeps segregating, it keeps pushing, and it keeps dividing individuals, and it groups them into things. And it just perpetuates the cycle. And once you have that segregation, it becomes like it becomes justifiable to lock up, to put people away for 23 hours out of day in a cell, to only have half the units come out at a time, to not allow full interactions, to not allow certain things to come into the units, commissary, and you can't have certain amount of things. It's just really dehumanizing, because other individuals in other units are allowed to have that. And what's more is that certain people might be going in and out of court. And I've seen it multiple times, and it's happened to me multiple times, where the officers, the safety officers, the sheriffs, whoever it might be, they come in and they raid you, because they're looking for things to prove that you're a gang member. They're looking for things to put you in this database. So at 3 a.m, you're woken up to guns pointed at your face, screaming, get on the floor. And at 4 or 5 a.m, you have to return back to your cell after you've been stripped naked, after you've been put in boxers, and you're sitting out in the cold, it's 40 degrees outside, and you're just sitting there on a bench, cuffed up, all of you. And you go back, your bed's ripped up, your mattresses are ripped up, notes are ripped up, papers ripped up, they spill water on your bed, and you're just like, well, what am I supposed to do now? So this inhumane treatment is big. And then you go into the overcharge and sentencing. And plea deals. That's the biggest one, the plea deals. So for me personally, I got charged with accessory to murder for one of my cases. And I was looking at a maximum of 3 years for it. And when the district attorney came in and they said, hey, we have paperwork to file a gang enhancement on him, the conversation switched from, okay, you're going to do 1 year to 2 years and we'll let you go home, to it's a life sentence now. So we can give you whatever we want, and you're just going to have to work with us. Meaning that they could come in here and say, okay, you're going to get 3 years, but the gang enhancement is going to give you a life sentence. So that's where they would create deals. Okay, sign up to be a gang member. Sign up to be on probation with X, Y, Z restrictions on your life. You have to carry an identification card like Lucero did, right? And it just became this basis of like, where there's no real evidence aside from like for me personally, I don't have no tattoos. I don't have anything on my body. So for someone to come in here and say that I'm an expert, I know that he hung around, or he's around, or his family members, or so-and-so, and say that we're going to go ahead and apply gang enhancement, it's not fair. It's too loosely based. So that's a little bit of how those pleas come out, and how they really, really like are super racist, but also create plea deals where people are like forced to take something and settle. So that a little more background for me is I want to give you some information about how my whole community became profiled and policed. So the building on the right is called Berkeley Youth Alternative. Berkeley Youth Alternative was one of the only places we could go as low income people in the area. Unfortunately, there was a big well burn on the side of the building, right? And to us as kids, we looked at it as the farm workers, the whole thing that they did, with Cesar Chavez and this whole movement and like this wonderful thing that happened. But to the police, it meant something else because there was a lot of crime happening, like Lucero said, an area with a lot of criminal activity, a hotbed for criminal activity. All these things started popping up, and they were like, "Oh, it's a lot of Latin people over there. Oh, it's a lot of African American people over there." So, we're just gonna go ahead and ground them up, bunch them up, and just because that's what happened in the 80s when this gang enhancement came out. No different here because there's a Huelga bird. There's a lot of Latin people in the community. They all wear a certain color. They all look a certain way. They all hang out together. They must be a part of a criminal organization. And for us, it was really, we had nowhere else to go. And sometimes we would stay on the facilities a little longer. Sometimes we'd be at the parks a little longer because that's just where we were at. And those trespassing groups of 3 or 4 or whatever turned into trespassing, but then it turned into criminal things that turned into the gang enhancement, which turned into like stay away orders, which turned into other things. And it just kind of skyrocketed out of control until they kicked you out the area where you were like, this is where I grew up and this is where my resources are. Same thing with the building on the left. That's one of the only Mexican mercados left in my community. But there's a mural on the bottom left of a Huelga bird once again. And then on the top right, there's murals of some people from the neighborhood that had got killed. So really it's just saying that, look, this whole community they're promoting on the side of the building people who got killed from the area, X, Y, and Z. And really it was just a basis for them to say, hey, there's a certain presence here. Hey, there's a certain thing here. I mean, you could read numerous articles. Same thing with San Francisco, where there's a Cesar Chavez mural and there's a big Huelga bird on it. And they say that means that there's a lot of presence of Northerners here, right? And there's other ties and stuff that they use as gang experts to create this. So, this is how they profile and how they put these ties and associations to whole communities. And then you move over to how the racist gang laws create that mass incarceration. So for me, it was really what they did was police cut offenses down in the projects, in the apartments we grew up, and they created crime watch groups. They installed cameras on every single building corner, and they had lights to all the fences. And they had fences like see-through fences, but they also put lights on all the streets that were kind of dark to light it up, because they wanted to scare people. They wanted to create the scare tactic, the same thing that happened in the 80s. It's a lot of crime going on. It's certain people that are doing it. It's certain communities that it's happening in, right? And we only see it in Black and brown communities, majority. We don't really see this happen in the suburbs, where they have some issues. They don't have, they don't see any of this. And like I said, police use the scare tactics. Certain people here, certain bad apples, or certain bad, whatever you want to say, and they're the reason why this is happening, and you need to look at them. So then it became, the neighbors will call the police, and they're going to harass people of color from the community. But more so is going to create those subconscious things in individuals' minds where they're like, you know what, the police is saying that there's a certain population here, a certain demographic of people that are doing this. So as any other kid who lives in this area, you might have no association. You don't do anything. You're just minding your business like I was, walking home 6th grade. But you're walking home in a community that they're saying it has a lot of police interaction. So what ends up happening is that police look at you and they're like, oh, you look like a gang member. Let me go ahead and pick up this phone and call the police and say, hey, there's an individual that looks funny. There's an individual that looks like he doesn't belong here. Or he's up to something. But it's like, really, I'm just walking home and you just feel uncomfortable with the fact that I look a certain way. So it allows for a lot of this, and it allows for a lot of community members to feel this disconnect, but also feel scared, where they feel like can't approach, you can't talk to people, you're causing trouble, you're violent, you're evil, whatever you want to say, really that's kind of what helps lead to this mass incarceration, but also it allows police to get away with a lot of the unjust stuff they do. And then another thing that I had touched on was how the gang database systems target people of color. So on the left picture, I'm going to read it out, but this is basically something that was created to help gang experts learn how to testify, put stuff together. It really is just police. So they said the defendant's affiliation with the gang is often born out of objective evidence such as tattoos, field identification cards, revealing associations, and self-admissions to officers. It is helpful the expert knows not only the gang in general, but the defendant himself. There is no prohibition against using multiple experts, and no one is intimately familiar with the gang and another who knows the defendant personally. So really what this is saying is that, the police department is using gang database to label individuals, but really what this goes into is it's saying someone who's never been a part of a gang, never, who's only policed it or said that I see certain things, saying that I'm gonna go to court and I'm gonna testify and I'm gonna say your tattoos, your cultural murals, your so and so, you know, is what leads to gang enhancements. And a lot of the times it just has to do with this loosely based term, where it's three or more people traveling in a group is enough, as long as you guys are committing some type of organized crime, such as trespassing, anything, is enough to say that you're a gang. Um, and police say that we know this because we've seen them hang out, we've seen them terrorize the community, and their statements matter a whole lot in court, especially when you go to the judge, because the judge is going to be like, or the DA is going to be like, you know what, you police people, you see this, what do you see? And their ways of thinking are really a lot of biases, and it's also really bad for the community, because that means I can't wear a certain color. That means I can't wear a certain sport. Like the 49ers are prevalent in the Bay Area. So if I wear 49ers gear, that might be enough to say, hey, the 49ers are associated with so and so. If I wear Raiders gear, you could be like, that's associated with so and so. If I wear LA Dodgers hat, that's associated with so and so. So really, that's the information and the things that a lot of these gang experts are contributing in these court systems, in these court settings, which is not fair at all. And like I said, they work with probation departments to keep away stay away orders, which are in that gang database. It's just a multiple array of things that they use to over police you, to keep you locked down, to not allow you to return to your community, to break down families, communities, and all these things. And I want to give you an example, right? So I'm from Berkeley. So um, you know, there's a lot of students who hang out in groups of 4, 5, 6, 7, stay in parks after dark, after restrictions, who go out and drinking and are walking around in groups, but you hardly ever see them criminalized and say, hey, you're an organization, you're drunk in public, you're causing mass hysteria to the groups, blah, blah, whatever you want to say. You never see them being targeted. But the moment that me and 3 other people from my community wear the same gear or wear the same hat, same shirt, same whatever, we're automatically targeted. So this just goes to show, how racist and how much they target certain people and certain demographics of people, and they track them. And like I said, this just allows for discrimination for clothing fashions, cultural imagery, and just used to incriminate people of color. So, I want to share with y'all another story from Nipsey Hussle. He even talks about this gang enhancement and how he's seen it. So I just wanted to give you guys multiple definitions and also someone tell a story about how this could look in a courtroom or even in a setting.
Alex, I think you need to share your sound.
Okay, yeah, give me 1 second. I need to reshare my video. Okay.
It's different. They got a thing called a gang enhancement. Meaning, let's say, Ebro, you a gang member. I don't gang bang. You in Rosenberg, see me, bow. Y'all jump me. Regular gang shit. Y'all fight me. Y'all break my nose. All right, that's a fight. Now, the fight hold maybe 16 months to 3 years max, depending on y'all criminal history. But you got the hood tattooed on you. He don't. He gonna get his 3 years. You got Rolling 60s tattooed on your body.
I actually do. That's
Yeah, I
interesting you
know,
say
I
that.
heard. You know what I'm saying?
It's weird that you know that.
Nah, but now when you go to court, they gonna say, all right, you're giving you 3 years for the actual crime, but your gang enhancement holds 30. Because it was called what they call great bodily harm. Because now they saying you done this for the benefit of a hood that has a history of murder, killing, bank robbery. So you doing this to benefit this hood. So now your crime gonna get you 3. Your gang enhancement, just because your tattoo, gonna get you 30. He got 3 years, you got 33 years. That's how they start whooping people. It's called a gang enhancement. And it's unbelievable. A carjacking can get you life if you from a gang. The gang enhancement on carjacking is life.
So yeah, so that was just a little short clip from Nipsey Hussle talking about some of the ways that he's seen it, some of the experiences and some of the things that they could see. So it's just a way to explain it. And then I'm gonna let Lucero take it away again.
So AB 33 will end prosecutors' ability to claim people are gang members simply because they may come from the same community, be related, or know each other. Reduce the list of crimes that allow gang enhancements to be charged. Prohibit the use of current charge as proof of a pattern of criminal gang activity. Require direct evidence of current and active gang allegations. Separate the gang allegations from underlying charges at trial. Where is AB 33 now? AB 33 is in the Senate Appropriations, which is shared by the Senator Anthony Portantino. As District 25, the Appropriations Committee will review the cost of the bill due to the bifurcation language, which would separate the underlying charges from gang allegations at trial and carries the spirit of the bill. Bifurcation is a way to address the strong evidence from studies that shows, including gang evidence, prejudice the jury towards guilty verdicts. Without bifurcation, the bill loses much of its power. If the bill doesn't pass appropriations, the bill will be killed. Black and Latino individuals make up to 92% of gang enhancement convictions. Call the Senator Portantino and tell him to support AB 33. We're asking for all of us to call out to action. If you support AB 33, we have a script right here. You could call the district office and start telling them to support AB 33.
Yeah, and with that being said, me and Lucero put a lot of work in this, and if you want to support us in any way, me personally, I'm a college student, so Lucero is also a mother. So if you guys want to support us through the pandemic or anything, my Venmo's right here, and I'll split any of the contributions. So yeah, thank you guys for your time, and I guess we can open it up for Q&A if you guys have any questions.
Thank you so much. Yeah, please feel free to put questions in the chat. We have about half an hour still, so now would be a great time for a conversation. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Is it Lorena?
Yes. Hi, my name is Lorena, and I live in Santa Barbara. But I can relate to what you're saying in regards to having a brother my brother was a Crip. We grew up in Oceanside. So I get where you're saying that you get affiliated. But my thing is, my brother just got out of doing 20 years. He got 3 life sentence. He fought 2 of them in there. I'm working with lifers right now. I am honored to work with lifers because you hear different stories, 2 different worlds, right? What you're describing, what I hearing when I talk with them is just like, man, how can I get involved as a sister, as a mother, as a friend, as an ally to get more word out there? I have a good friend of mine who actually sent me this link to get involved, but I'm definitely want to get more involved in this situation. And how can I be of service to, I don't know if you guys saw me, but I sure did use my phone to, do a screenshot of the script because I'm going to be calling. Now, do we just call that particular politician or do we call other ones as well, like our local ones, to get the AB 33 information out? That's why my question is, how can I be more involved? And do I just call one or Titiano, or do I call more?
Yeah, so I think with this, I would say you call him because he's one of the people in appropriations, and he's one of the people that's going to help either get this bill out or kill it. So that's why we're really targeting him right now. Other ways you could do it too. There's like letters of support. So I guess if you want to send me an email, I can send you a template and walk you through the steps of submitting a letter of support, which is going to go to legislation, and they're going to read it, and you would just say why you support the bill. So I'll drop my email in the chat for you if you want to email me, and then I can send you how you can send in the letter of support. Cool, I got yours. Okay, I'll write it down, and then I can send you information on how you could send a letter of support. Thank you, though. That's hella dope. I appreciate your work.
Yeah, I didn't know that that one, Nipsey, like just saying how 30 years for a gang, you don't got no tattoos and you still got affiliated as a gang member. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of stuff that, I don't know. That's why I had all my kids go to different high schools so they don't get affiliated with their siblings.
even now that I live in a different neighborhood in San Francisco, I live in the Avenues. 2 years back, I've been in my leadership. I'm not an active person. I've been in my change. I go back inside juvenile hall, the DAW system. I go back into my community. But recently in the Avenues, one of the gang task force that knew me when I was a kid, he was off duty and he still called me from my nickname. He was still trying to harass me, even being off duty. And I was like, I haven't even been in your face for like 6, 7 years now. I'm a mom of 2 kids. I'm in my change. I go to school. I'm not in my own neighborhood. I'm actually doing events in my neighborhood to shut down juvenile hall in San Francisco. And we're in the process of shutting down juvenile hall by the end of 2021 in December. And just having that harassment itself was like, damn, you still don't see me as a human, even in my change.
Well, Lucero, if you need me to go up there and support you guys, being part of shutting something down like that, let me know. I'll drive up there.
I also added the MailChimp here, and if you click into the email, it will show you the history of AB 33, what are the next steps, what you can do, give them a call, and how you could join.
Lucetta, I said your name wrong, huh? Lucetta, sorry. I just did mine. It was really easy. This is Layla from Pillars. How you doing?
How you doing? Thank you, Layla.
Yep, I just did my email right now. And then on the bottom, it let me even put a more personal sentence on there on why. So if anybody wants to click that right now, that link they put in, you could actually make that. If all of us did that, that's 23 emails just from this conference that folks are going to get, that Portantino's going to get. And that's a lot of help. And it just took me literally about 20 seconds.
Thank you, Layla.
No worries. Thank you for all the work you've been doing.
Thank you, Ben.
I just want to add that those emails are so important because the legislators and the reps really do take tally of it. So every email is impactful.
Any more questions?
Well, we do have time to have more of a conversation. I don't know, Alex, if you want to put your Venmo back up, that would be cool. Folks can pay for your time. Thank you so much. The next round of stuff is at 11:30. But yeah, we should keep talking. AB 333 really has a chance of going into law this year. So
Please support, please share this out to your community, to people who have been impacted. This is a big fight. It's just a little step, to humanize our Black and brown people, to, think about their investment of, coming back into the community and helping our young people out who are in the same situations.
I just did my email. Thank you, Layla, for that. I did it right now, like you said, and it didn't take not much. So my other question, just because I noticed that it actually sent it through my Outlook email. Can I send it through my Gmail email as well? Yeah?
You can, like they did something fancy. You see how fancy it was? It populated the email for you. So
Right.
Like brought up that email. So I think once you click it and it populates it, you might be able to copy it and then paste it in your other one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I usually do. I usually like take it from the Outlook and I put it right into my Gmail. And I make a Gmail and send that.
I have a quick question, if that's all right. I got here a little late, so I might have missed it. But does this do anything like retroactively? Like if anybody who's like going through the system right now, if this were to pass, does it like only count for like the future, or if you're already like in the system because of it, it can go back and like reduce your sentence?
It's
Yeah,
not
so,
retroactive, but next year we're coming back to get more, right, you guys?
Yeah, so this cycle there was a lot of amendments made to it. Some of them got rid of stuff like that. So yeah. So I mean, but part of the first step of it is actually trying to get this to pass and people to, California says it's progressive and whatnot. So part of it is like, let's get this through, and then let's with the coming legislative cycle, let's try to push it a little further. But I think just getting it off the ground, getting some of those things already on there and some stepping stones, this will help us do like achieve some of the other things that you've been brought up in terms of like retroactivity and some other things that people want to see with it.
I put it in the chat, Alex, so you can stop sharing.
I have a question. So Lucero, you mentioned how you just got harassed by this cop who was when you were doing your stuff, right? And can't you just do like a harassment on him? Because like that's harassment now. Can people who have been accused of, or still being harassed by cops who are no longer affiliated with certain things, can they do that? Can you?
Yes, I can. I was actually in the process with an attorney of mine to really have them stop harassing me. Even when I do outreach in my community, sometimes I have the gang task force pass by and just their look, and I'm just kind of like, I'm just doing my job. I'm doing what I'm doing for my community. But I just keep it pushing. And with that incident, I end up getting my job and my support team to actually support me in the process of, telling this officer to stop harassing me, especially when they see me. So you could do stuff like that. Yes.
I was also surprised how you had mentioned that you can't wear no UC or CSU's like gear. Like, what about if you do become a student at one of those? You can't wear none of their gear?
So for me, I grew up in Berkeley personally. So for us, it was growing up, we all used to wear Berkeley hoodies. Like everybody from just like certain people from certain hoods and whatever, like certain neighborhoods, like right, you're from LA, you're gonna wear LA hat, you're gonna wear LA gear, right? So for us, it was we couldn't wear it because they associated that, like if you're Latino and you're from a certain part, they associated it with you're a part of this gang, you're promoting it and blah blah blah, what have you not. But now I still wear it, right? Because I'm a Cal student right now. So if they pull me over, I'm gonna just pull out my fucking ID card and I'm gonna be like, man, I'm a UC Berkeley student. What you harassing me for, right? And whatnot. And if they want to make it an issue, I'll make it an issue. I'll send a letter up to the mayor or something, right? Like I'm not gonna let them punt me around and tell me what I can and can't do. So really what it boils down to was So to a certain extent, they wouldn't. They wouldn't let you do certain things. They wouldn't let you in, especially once the probation came into it, like probation department. Part of the way of doing that was they had orders and they had I can't remember when I was on probation, I was actually on 5-way search, which a lot of people don't even know exists. But 5-way search pretty much means that any given time I have my phone right here, I'm on the phone, I get pulled over. Hey, Mr. Diaz, I need to see your phone. Unlock it. If I don't unlock it, that's an automatic violation. I'm going right back to jail. So for me, it was like, man, I can't even have contact with people. It was hard because I was like, man, I can't have certain messages, or like I got to delete my messages after I talk to my uncle, after talk to my cousins, like, because if not, they're gonna say that like, oh, you guys were talking about whatever. So for me, it was like on that level where it was like, man, it was control of everything. My laptop had to be clean, everything, because if not, it was like automatic harassment. So for like 3 years, it was like that. So that's just the level that they put me on for my case.
Even gang enhancements. I had a friend who had a seizure and I was like maybe 4 blocks away from my stay away order, but just because of the individual had a seizure, he was wearing just a little tiny bit of red and blue. I went to prison for 3 weeks just because he had a seizure and he had a little bit of red. The prison ended up letting me go because it wasn't a probable cause to keep me inside, but just that trauma itself, or just going back to prison, having to be there for 3 weeks just because I was trying to help my friend because he was having a seizure. Those type of things, if you support AB33, this would help, in the long run. But that was my experience as well with the gang enhancement.
I'm grateful for this because this is so educational. I had no idea. And my brother being a gang, but just I had no idea like you could go to jail for helping somebody not to die. I mean, not even jail, prison. Like that's so much more money trying to, paperwork sending you over there for 3 weeks, come back out. Like, I'm just like, wow. Count me in.
And just the language barrier, families who are minorities don't understand the language that's happening in the courtroom, and just taking anything because you're like, I want to go home, but not understanding that these deals that you're going to take is going to affect you in the long run. I didn't know being on paper commitment parole meant that when I get out, any little thing as small as stealing a Skittle, trying to get help, I will get sent back to prison. And that's what actually happened. I was in a very domestic violence situation. I was trying to ask for help, but because my gang enhancement and because my charges were very violent, I went to prison for 2 years and 8 months for grand theft, trying to ask for help because my pimp was beating the shit out of me and I had 2 black eyes when I got arrested. But my gang enhancement carried more than what I was looking for when I was actually trying to get help.
Yeah, and even sometimes too, one of the things that they do, like currently for me, I'm trying to get rid of it, is they also put this thing called suspended sentences on you. So for me, I got a 10-year suspended sentence, meaning that if I fuck up, I automatically get a 10 years in prison. That's part of my deal. So 10 years for 10 years is what they told me. So if I fuck up in 10 years, I automatically get 10 years in prison. So that's another thing that they do too. They can do suspended sentences on you, where it's like a way for you to come home, but it's like, all right, you fuck up, you done. For me, and that was part of like my strike and stuff that they gave me on my deal. So there's things like that too that they can give you and that they hand out sometimes. But it's crazy things, right? So now it's like, man, I'm just, you gotta be super, super careful with everything you do. You gotta be super on point, like, and things come up. So those are some other tactics and some other things that they could use and they could try to build on you and stuff. And honestly, one of the biggest things of these gang enhancements is when you're in a courtroom and you're trying to fight your case, the moment someone says, hey, let me show you some pictures of, for me, it was like, let me show you a picture of a red shirt that was in his room. Let me show you, whatever it might be. Let me show you a picture of him and his brother, or his brother back in the day, or like on somebody else's profile, whatever, from like 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And you're just like, man, that's so long ago, like, right? They have certain statutes on evidence, but like they still say it to build a case like, well, we just want to show you what type of individual this person is. And they use that to sway the court to be like, okay, so he's gang related. And the moment you say that, individuals in the courtroom are like, nah, he they automatically have this association in mind, like, yo, you a gang member, you must be violent, you must be evil, you must roll with a certain group. And even the evidence on it too is like, a lot of people get pulled over for selling drugs. A lot of people get pulled over for like doing certain things. But what it comes down to is like, it's crazy because it's like, I got caught. One of my first charges was selling cocaine, right? And it was like, oh, it was for the benefit of a gang. And it's like, hold on, give me a second. You're a gang expert, right? As a police officer, give me a second. Think about this. Think about this with me. I'm selling drugs who sometimes doesn't have food or a roof over my head to like sleep, but I'm selling drugs to give it to somebody else who's in my gang. Like, that makes sense to you? But that's the way that they kind of word it and they say it. So now it becomes a gang enhancement on a certain charge. And then it's like, man, I'm doing that for me because I ain't got nowhere else to go, because I'm 13 or 14. I ain't got nowhere to go. I ain't got nowhere to put my head to go to sleep. I ain't got no food in my stomach. Like, I just got to do certain things to survive. I can't get employment because you got to go through the school, and the school has to verify that you're doing X, Y, and Z in order to get a job, or you have to do certain. So for me, it's just crazy how they say certain activities are gang enhancements or gang activities. where it's really like a lot of these people doing these things are like, they just need support, they need help, they need other things. And they're not doing it for the benefit of the gang. They're doing it for their own benefit because they need it then and there, and nobody else would give it to them then and there. So that's another crazy part about it too. I don't know if folks got other questions, comments, or if you guys just want to bring anything up. More than open to listening. Pretty sure this is a safe space too for people to share.
Now, when you're saying about your brother, man, like I was like, so my dad was in the military, right? And then we moved out of the base, which was even a culture shock for us. Because when I went, I remember my first day of school, like everyone had, you had your groups, there was groups, and I never had that. Like I was waiting for somebody to come to me and be like, hey, you're new here, how you doing? Because that's how I was in the military base, right? Nah. Luckily, I had a friend who wasn't with me, who lived in there, went to school with me, and she's like, here's a whole different story, Lorena, whole different story, right? So she brought me in, and all of a sudden it's like, especially when you biracial and you have different things, it's so different. We don't have it that easy either. So they would ask me, oh, you're so-and-so's sister. I'm like, nah, I don't got no siblings. I got no siblings, and I dead off look like my brother, but I always denied he was my brother for that same reason, and this is a time when in the 80s when drive-bys were going big, but no, I get that. And it sucks, when you said that 10-year life sentence. So right now, as of today, if you were to do something, they could take you back and you have to finish off your 10 years.
Yeah, so the way it works is that as part of my deal, it was like, okay, if you repeat a certain behavior that you were already charged with, so like an assault, if you have another assault case, that assault case is automatically gonna carry 10 years for you. That's part of it. So it was like I had already got credit for time served on what I had did, right? I took whatever deal I took, served my sentence, and then as a part of it was like, okay, if you repeat that criminal behavior again, because we already have you on file for this, right? We can automatically apply to 10 years. But for me, in my head, personally, like you asked me, it had a lot to do with the gang enhancement because my attorney told me if you go to court or you go to trial, it's going to be really hard to fight it. And once they say like that gang enhancement, like Nipsey said in that video, because I had assault with a deadly weapon and a great bodily injury charge. So it was the same thing. If like we take it to court, you're gonna be looking at like 30 years, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever it might be. So as part of my deal was like, we're gonna, I guess it was kind of like the judge was like, all right, we're gonna let you go with what you've already served. But if it happens again, it's an automatic 10 years.
Are there any lawyers that specialize that are for, like, not for, but defend gang members of gang injunctions? Like, are there, like, I could pick up the phone right now and be like, look for a gang injunction lawyer who defends gang members against the DA?
Probably. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it because there's so many cases that happen in so many different counties that have to do with this. I'm personally not sure. I haven't heard of it. I'm pretty sure certain attorneys deal with it a lot in certain areas. Like I know Oakland officers and like the DA has set up that injunction throughout Oakland. And I know it was overturned though. I think they set it up in like 2014 when I was like 17 or 16. They set up those injunctions. So it was like you couldn't be in a certain part of the city and or within like the Diamond District, right? That's where all the Latino people were at. You couldn't be in there and like wear certain colors. You couldn't be in there and do certain things or be with certain people. So I'm pretty sure there was like a lot of attorneys in court cases that came up, and they probably had like the Constitution, like they probably tried to file like a constitutional thing or something, where they're like, this is a violation of my rights. Like how are you going to tell me I can't dress a certain way even if I don't have a criminal, like even if I don't have any criminal charges, I have no gang membership status. Like how is in the Diamond District is like if you wear red, you gonna get charged for if you're out after a certain hour or time, like after 10, I think, and you're under age 18, that's enough to get violated or stopped or harassed too. It's like you
That's
had
if you're brown and black though, right? Because I doubt if it's skater, you know, Caucasian males up there with funny looking hair and he's wearing red, he's not going to get the same treatment, right?
Yeah, probably not. Yeah. So that's how it happened. So they overturned it eventually. I think in like 2018 or 2017, they overturned it. They got rid of the injunction because of that. But I'm pretty sure it was a lot of people coming through and getting filtered in that shouldn't have got filtered in. And I'm pretty sure on some basis, like I don't know if the public defender's office did it or if it was some type of like somebody hired an attorney or if it was like DA complaints to the DA or to the city of Oakland. But I know that's how they overturned it for that reason, like what you're saying.
So now that they overturned it, everybody who was on that list is completely out. Now they can't be harassed. I mean, they're going to be harassed no matter what, but technically, legally, they can't get them for the stuff that they were able to get them before, correct?
Yeah, they can't get them from being in the injunction zones. You can't, they won't be able to be arrested for that because they got rid of it.
Even in San Francisco, the injunctions, when we were overviewing the list, they had people who were deceased. Why do you still have people who are deceased? And why are you still harassing their families? Let the family be at peace. Let them find some healing for their loss of their family member, right? But why is this person who is deceased still in this injunction? And why are you still harassing this family member? Because someone, you know, was affiliated or anything.